A poor mechanic fixed a woman's tractor she returned in a jet, changing their lives forever. The sun baked down on the cracked dirt roads of Willow Creek, a town so small that a passing cloud could throw the whole place into shade. Dean Carter wiped the sweat from his brow with a rag that had long since given up on being clean. His mechanic shop, a ramshackle structure with a faded sign reading Carter's Repairs, leaned slightly, as if the very building shared Dean's weary spirit. Dean wasn't a man of many possessions. His tools were old, his truck older, and his dreams, well, they mostly sat packed away in the back of his mind, dustier than the shelves in his office. But if there was one thing Dean still clung to, it was pride in doing honest work, and never turning away someone in need. That's why, when the woman stumbled into his shop that blazing afternoon, her boots caked with mud and her face streaked with desperation, Dean didn't think twice. "Please," she said, her voice cracking. "My tractor, it broke down halfway through plowing season. I've got nobody else." Dean looked past her toward the horizon. In Willow Creek, a broken tractor during plowing season was like a death sentence for a farmer. Crops didn't wait. Without asking about payment, he grabbed his toolbox. "Show me where it's at," he said simply. The woman, who introduced herself as Emily Monroe, led Dean to a battered John Deere sitting helplessly in the middle of a dust-choked field. One look told Dean the repair wasn't going to be easy. The engine was seized up, probably from years of deferred maintenance. Fixing it could take days, time he could have spent on paying customers. Time he couldn't really afford to give away. But Dean rolled up his sleeves and got to work anyway. Hours stretched into the evening. Emily stayed by his side, handing him wrenches, holding the flashlight steady. They didn't talk much, but there was a quiet understanding between them. A shared weariness, a silent hope. When the engine finally coughed and sputtered to life under the setting sun, Emily burst into tears. "That I can't pay you," she whispered, ashamed. "Not now. Maybe not for a long while." Dean simply shrugged. "Don't worry about it," he said, meaning it. "Just promise me one thing, keep going." She nodded, wiping her face with the sleeve of her flannel shirt, and climbed back onto the tractor. Dean stood there as she drove away, a cloud of dust trailing behind her, and he told himself he didn't need thanks, or money. Just knowing he had helped was enough. Or so he thought. Weeks passed. Then months. Dean went back to patching up pickup trucks and farm equipment, working late nights and eating canned beans warmed over a hot plate. Business was slower than usual. Bills stacked up. There were nights he sat alone in his shop, staring at the peeling paint on the walls, wondering if kindness really was its own reward, or just another way for good people to lose. One particular morning, when the wind howled and rattled the tin roof, Dean found a notice taped to his door: final warning, loan default. The bank was coming for the shop. He sat down heavily on the steps, head in his hands. It was over. That's when he heard it, the low, powerful hum of engines overhead. He looked up. A private jet, a sleek, shining miracle, circled the town and descended onto the nearby empty stretch of highway, the only flat ground for miles. It kicked up a storm of dust as it landed, causing Dean to shield his face with his arm. Out of the jet stepped a woman in a tailored suit and cowboy boots, Emily Monroe. But she wasn't the same desperate farmer he had helped months ago. She walked toward Dean with a smile that lit up the whole world. Behind her, men and women in business attire filed out, carrying briefcases and folders. "I told you I'd come back," she said, eyes gleaming. Dean blinked. "You have a jet?" Emily laughed, a sound so full of life it made Dean's heart ache. "After you fixed my tractor, I was able to save my harvest. That one harvest saved my family farm. And that farm? Turns out, it was sitting on one of the largest deposits of rare minerals in the state. A company made me an offer. I took it and I invested." She gestured to the people behind her. "Now I run one of the fastest growing agricultural tech startups in the country. And I'm here for you, Dean Carter." Before he could protest, Emily pressed a set of keys into his hand. "A new shop. New equipment. A full staff. And enough money to never worry about bills again. Dean's mouth opened, but no words came out. Emily leaned in closer, her voice thick with emotion. You didn't just fix my tractor. You saved my life. You believed in me when no one else would. Now it's my turn. Tears welled up in Dean's eyes as he looked around at the jet, the people, the hope he thought he had lost forever, all from a simple act of kindness. Years later, Willow Creek would barely recognize itself. Thanks to Dean and Emily's partnership, the town bloomed with new businesses, better schools, and opportunities no one had dared dream about before. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Dean would sit on the porch of his new, bustling garage, watching kids ride their bikes down clean, paved streets. Sometimes, he'd catch a glimpse of the jet high in the sky, its contrail cutting a bright line across the blue. And he'd smile, remembering that some investments don't show up in ledgers or bank accounts. They show up when you choose to believe in people. They show up when kindness, given freely, circles back like a jet soaring home. The smallest acts of compassion can change lives in ways we could never imagine, and sometimes, they come back to lift us higher than we ever thought possible.